Hello, today we're going to review the fundamental rules to obtain your hazardous materials Hazmat endorsement in Arkansas. This state has specific requirements for professional drivers, so let's get prepared for you to pass that exam on the first try. Here are the key questions for the Arkansas Hazmat exam. Where must the shipping papers be kept while the driver is in the seat? In the driver's door pouch or in clear view within reach? Emergency responders need to find these documents immediately if you are incapacitated. Let's continue. What is the main purpose of the hazardous materials regulations? To communicate the risk and ensure safe transport. The rules are designed to protect you, the public, and the environment by making sure everyone knows exactly what is being moved. Next question. A hazard class name or ID number must not be used to describe a non-hazardous material. Using hazmat terms for safe goods causes unnecessary alarm and wastes emergency resources. Let's move on. Who is responsible for certifying on the shipping paper that the cargo was prepared properly? The shipper. While the driver must check the paperwork, the shipper is legally responsible for the accuracy of the packaging and description. Continuing. When are placards required for any amount of Table 1 materials? Always. Table 1 materials are the most dangerous and must be identified regardless of the weight being carried. Next point. How many identical placards must a vehicle display? 4. One on the front, one on the back, and one on each side so the hazard is visible from any angle. Let's keep going. Where should placards be placed on a vehicle? At least 3 inches away from any other markings. This buffer zone ensures that the placards are not obscured and are easily recognizable by officials. Next question. What is the total weight of all hazardous materials on Table 2 that requires placarding? 1,001 pounds or more. Once the aggregate weight of Table 2 materials hits this threshold, the entire vehicle must be placarded. Let's continue. Which hazard class must you never smoke within 25 feet of? Class 1 explosives. Open flames and smoking are strictly prohibited around explosives as well as flammable gases and liquids. Next point. What must you do if you discover a leaking package of hazardous materials? Stop and call for help immediately. Never try to finish the trip with a leak. Contain the area and contact the authorities. Let's move on. How often must you check the tires on a placarded vehicle with duals? Every 2 hours or 100 miles. Frequent checks prevent tire fires and blowouts that could lead to a catastrophic hazmat incident. Continuing. When must you stop at a railroad crossing with a placarded vehicle? 15 to 50 feet before the nearest rail. This stop is mandatory for nearly all placarded vehicles to ensure no trains are approaching. Next question. What is the Emergency Response Guidebook (ERG) used for? To identify hazard zone information and safety procedures. It is the Bible for drivers and first responders to determine the initial steps during an accident. Let's keep going. What should you do if your vehicle is leaking hazardous materials? Park it and secure the area. Your priority is to keep the public away from the scene until professional cleanup crews arrive. Next point. A driver who hauls hazardous materials must have what on their CDL? A hazardous materials endorsement. This requires a background check, a knowledge test, and specialized training. Let's continue. Which of these is a prohibited smoking area when loading flammable liquids? Within 50 feet of the vehicle. Fumes can travel significant distances, so the no smoking zone is expanded during loading and unloading. Next question. What is the intent of the hazardous materials regulations? To contain the material and communicate the risk. Everything from the container strength to the placard color serves these two primary goals. Let's move on. If the word poison is on the label, which hazard zone must it belong to? Hazard zone A or B? These labels indicate high toxicity materials that require extreme care and specific routing. Continuing. What is the minimum distance a placarded vehicle must be parked from a bridge or tunnel? 300 feet. This distance helps protect infrastructure in case the vehicle catches fire or explodes. Next point. When transporting Division 1.1 explosives, where should you never park? On a public street or shoulder. Explosives must be parked in safe havens or away from populated areas and heavy traffic. Let's keep going. Who is responsible for finding out if a permit is needed for a specific route? The carrier. While the driver follows the route, the trucking company must ensure all legal permits are in place. Next question. What does the identification number on a placard represent? The specific chemical or material being carried. This 4-digit number allows responders to look up specific hazards in the ERG instantly. Let's continue. If you are carrying 100 pounds of Class 1.1 explosives, what placard is needed? Explosives 1.1. Because it is a Table 1 material, even 100 pounds requires full placarding. Next point. What color is the placard for flammable gas? Red. The color coding system helps responders identify the general type of danger from a distance. Let's move on. When can you leave a placarded vehicle unattended? Only in a safe haven or if the job requires it. Most high-risk loads must be under constant surveillance by the driver or a qualified representative. Continuing. What is a safe haven? An approved place for parking unattended vehicles with explosives. These are government-approved or designated areas specifically for high-hazard cargo. Next question. Which document must include the proper shipping name and ID number? The shipping paper. This document is the legal record of the hazardous materials being transported. Let's keep going. How must packages of explosives be loaded? Handled with care and braced to prevent movement. Shifting cargo can lead to friction or impact, which is extremely dangerous with explosives. Next point. What should you use to signal other drivers if you break down at night? Reflective triangles. Never use flares or any signal that produces a flame or spark near a hazmat vehicle. Let's continue. When can you move a leaking vehicle? Only if moving it is safer than leaving it. For example, moving a leaking truck away from a crowded school to an empty field is often the safer choice. Next question. Which hazard class is represented by a yellow placard? Oxidizers. Yellow signals materials that can provide oxygen to a fire, making it much harder to extinguish. Let's move on. What is the thickness of the black line inside the border of a placard? Approximately 5 mm. Standardization is key. Every placard must meet exact size and design specifications to be legal. Continuing. When can you transport hazardous materials in a rental truck? Only if it meets all safety and placarding rules. Rental status doesn't exempt the vehicle from federal and state hazmat regulations. Next point. What must you do if you are involved in a collision while hauling hazmat? Follow the emergency response plan and notify authorities. Every driver should know their company's emergency protocols before the wheels start turning. Let's keep going. How many different hazard classes are there? 9. These range from explosives class 1 to miscellaneous class 9. Next question. What is a segregation table used for? To see which materials can be loaded together. Some chemicals react violently when mixed, so they must be separated in the trailer. Let's continue. If a shipping paper has an X in the HM column, what does it mean? The entry is a hazardous material. The X or RQ for reportable quantity alerts the driver to which items on a mixed manifest are dangerous. Next point. What is the reporting requirement for a major hazmat spill? Call the National Response Center immediately. Federal law requires notification for spills that involve injury, death, or significant property damage. Let's move on. Which material requires a placard regardless of the amount? Tank car of poison gas. Any bulk packaging of high-hazard materials must be marked immediately. Continuing. What is the rule for floor liners when hauling explosives? They must be non-ferrous or covered with wood. This prevents sparks from metal-on-metal contact, which could ignite the cargo. Next question. When can you load corrosives next to flammables? Only if they are separated by a space or buffer. The segregation rules determine exactly how much distance is required between incompatible classes. Let's keep going. What must you check before loading a tank with a different material? That the tank is clean and compatible. Mixing leftover residue with a new chemical can cause a dangerous reaction or ruin the product. Next point. What is the purpose of the dome cover on a tank? To provide access for loading and inspection. It also houses safety valves that prevent the tank from rupturing if pressure builds up. Let's continue. If you see a placard with a skull and crossbones, what is the hazard? Poison. This universal symbol warns everyone that the material is toxic if inhaled, swallowed, or touched. Next question. What is the primary hazard of Class 5 materials? They provide oxygen and increase the risk of fire. Oxidizers don't necessarily burn themselves, but they make other fires much more intense. Let's move on. How do you know which emergency guide page to use in the ERG? By the ID number or the shipping name. The yellow and blue sections of the guidebook help you cross-reference the chemical to the correct response page. Continuing. What should you do if your trailer begins to sway while hauling hazmat? Slow down gradually and keep the vehicle steady. Avoid sudden steering inputs or hard braking, which could cause a rollover or jackknife. Next point. When must a driver receive hazmat training? Within 90 days of employment and every 3 years. Regular training ensures you are up to date on the latest safety protocols and regulations. Let's keep going. What does the marine pollutant mark look like? A fish and a tree with an X through them. This identifies materials that are particularly harmful to aquatic life if they enter the water supply. Next question. If a shipping paper is not required for a load, can you still placard the truck? No, it is prohibited to placard if not required. False placarding is a serious violation because it misleads emergency responders.